Good evening, everyone. David Bay here for your official Mr. Olympia Instagram live. We are here just 10 days removed from the 2020 Mr. Olympia. What a year it was. You guys, there was a lot of craziness happening in the last 6 weeks trying to move one of the biggest events in sports and fitness in the entire world across the country with just 6 weeks to go. And the Olympia team did it in phenomenal style. So couldn't be more proud of the team from the Olympia for the work that they've done. Welcoming everybody in. Pietaro, Fleeth, Deval, Shaika, 76, Georgie Boy, 17, Sumo Somu, good morning. It is evening here. I'm a few hours north of Chicago, Central Time Zone in the United States. I'm going to give you guys some time to join in, but we have your 212 Olympia champion and new Shaun Clarida going to be joining us here in just a little bit. As always, guys, our Instagram Lives brought to you by our Olympia title sponsor, an official meal delivery service, Trifecta. Trifecta, a name you guys have heard associated with the Olympia over the course of the last 2 years. Again, our title sponsor. Huge thank you to Trifecta. But more than that, again, the official meal delivery service providing so many of our top Olympians with their meal prep. You guys can check them out at trifectanutrition.com. You don't have to be a top Olympian or an elite athlete to find value in their service. So they have meals for everybody: keto, paleo, regular, clean, all around healthy nutrition, vegetarian, vegan. You order it online, it gets shipped right to your front door. It couldn't be easier to eat healthy. So once again, big thank you to Trifecta Nutrition. Make sure to give them some time when you guys get it to head over again, trifectanutrition.com. GT Fit Life, working to get to the Olympia stage one day. Well, we wish you the best of luck. A comment that we see a lot on here on the Olympia pages, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we see a lot of people jump in with comments similar to yours, saying they want to get it to the Olympia stage someday. And comments like that are oftentimes met with doubters or naysayers or people laughing and things like that. And it's ironic that the gentleman we're bringing on tonight probably heard every "you can't make it" statement that anybody has ever heard. Shaun Clarida, of course, turning pro as a 118-pound bantamweight. And after turning pro in 2012, just grinded it out year after year after year, and is now your 212 Olympia champion. Again, we're going to be having him on here in just a little bit. I want to send a shout out to our friends at Olympia Gear. They really stepped up the game this year for all the merch for the Olympia. I got my sweatshirt, my hat. You guys can check them out at olympiagear.com. Sizes do run a little bit small. So I am about 5'10", 265, 270. This is a triple XL, so it is definitely a fitted thing. So if you're somebody shopping on Olympia Gear, go a size up. But again, great stuff. A lot of really cool merchandise that was brand new for 2020 that everybody was happy to see at the fan pavilion that we had this year. Thank you to everybody who showed up for the fan pavilion. Hadi Chupin is the best bodybuilder in the world. We loved seeing Hadi there again. Didn't walk away with that title, but also another top 5 finish for Hadi. So an incredible finish for Hadi. We're really proud of him. So we're going to be seeing if Shaun is ready here. Let's take a look. And guys, for as much as we would like to have everybody live here, we do focus on Shaun Clarida here tonight. But once again, we appreciate everybody's requests. And there he is. Wait, just give me a second because I didn't get to say it. I want my turn in saying it. And new Olympia champion, Shaun Clarida. Shaun, 2 words that athletes, well, unless you're the reigning champion, every athlete in their time likes to hear. We got some time, so we'll circle back, but I want to get right into it. You're standing there, head down. George Peterson just got 3rd. He's happy, first 212 Olympia. It's you and the former champ.
Yeah.
Of course, Bob Ciccarello drug it out like he always does, building that anticipation. We saw your response, very Ronnie Coleman-esque, when he won his first Olympia, dropping to the floor.
Yeah.
Take me through that moment when you heard the words "and knew."
That's all I needed to hear. I didn't even hear my name being called after that. It just hit me like a bag of like a brick wall, man. It just kind of just remembering this the prep, the 16 years, the hard work, the naysayers, having my team there. It was just so much built up emotion. This is something I dreamed about, my whole entire career. One day being Olympia champion, year after year, getting to Olympia, getting a little bit closer every single year, and finally for it to pay off in such a crazy year we've had. It's a moment you really can't put into words. It was just so much emotion. I just had to let it out, and I just couldn't help it.
And you brought up a really good point in one of your posts, which I think really resonates with everybody who's won at really any level. You said it doesn't matter what happens from here on out. Doesn't matter what next year brings. It doesn't matter what the next decade brings. From here on out, you're an Olympia champion,
Yeah.
and you'll have that title. I mean, is that? I know we're 10 days removed. Has that really sunk in yet?
Honestly, it hasn't. And I actually had a chance to sit with Flex Lewis today. Flex Lewis the day after the show, and we were just talking. He's like, "How does it feel?" I was like, "Honestly, Flex, I don't know. It hasn't hit me." And he's like, "It won't hit you right away. It's going to take some time, but when it hits you, it's going to hit you hard." It really hasn't sunk in much. I'm back to the gym, and everyone's congratulating me, coming up to me, taking pictures, and it still hasn't really hit me that I'm the Olympia champ. I'm sure it's coming soon. Be that one time where I'm not really thinking about it, and it's just gonna hit me hard. But I'm taking it all in. I'm enjoying everything, every minute of it. I'm proud of the moment. My team's proud of the moment. But we're kind of just getting back to work. We got the first one down, and we're working on the second.
He said we got the first one down. Somebody just said looks like a Ronnie Coleman, looked like a little Ronnie Coleman, which is interesting because, of course, being in the media pit at prejudging, I'm directly behind the judges. And then there was the judges and a few of the other IFBB judges who were there for the Amateur Olympia that weren't necessarily on the judging panel for you, but were there because they wanted to watch.
Yep.
And when you came out and went through quarter turns and they had you hit a back shot, one of the judges in front of us was like, Jesus Christ, he looks like a little Ronnie Coleman. And that was kind of the theme around that prejudging was like, yes, that's what you reminded of it. When we say little Ronnie Coleman, obviously that's a great comparison, but I think the meaning behind that is like it's mind blowing how much mass you've been able to put on your frame. Did you have because after prejudging, and we can say this now, I think the majority of the people in the media, and I certainly can't speak for the judges, but I think everybody pretty much had you winning after prejudging unless something drastic happened with anybody else's conditioning or you turned in the other direction, which you've been very consistent over the course of the last 5 years, 6 years of the Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
Have a pretty after prejudging that you were in a top spot. I mean, you were obviously in that last call out, but I mean, as far as first, was that something you were aware of?
Honestly, I thought I was somewhere in the top four, just based on the call outs, just based upon how things were going. We knew it was close. I just didn't know exactly where I was. Obviously, everyone coming up to you, certain people, who are high up in the industry, definitely were telling me, "Hey, you're in the mix tonight. Just come back tonight, just as better, just as good, if not better than you were this morning." So we got back to the room, Matt and I, and we just kind of we didn't do anything crazy. We kind of just ate a very small meal, and he had me rested. He just wants me to stay rested and stay calm the entire time because that's what works best for my body. So we ate a small meal. I laid down. I got about 45-minute nap in, and we got up and started posing and just hitting shots and just really started getting things going. And we packed things up and went back to the night show. Again, we knew it was going to be a battle, so we were prepared for another round as far as posing goes. And because I knew it was close, I knew Steve was going to work us, which he did, obviously, at the night show. And I honestly didn't expect a two-man call-out at the end. I really thought it was going to be the same thing as the morning show. He's four of us, me, Kamal, George, and Derek. But when I saw the call outs going on, I noticed that Derek and George were in their own call out. So I was like, wow, it's gonna be a 2-man call out. So I was ready. I was ready to go another round. I was ready to give everything I had because I heard if I really want it, I have to give everything now. This is the last opportunity to do that. And that's just pretty much what I did. And honestly, when we were lined up, I really felt like I was going to take second just because I knew that Kamal was the champion. He was very much improved from last year. It was very close. And I figured, hey, most of the time, they're going to go with the champ, especially if he's improved, And he was. So at that very moment, I was ready for the second place spot. But obviously, I'm sitting there. I'm still hoping, have a little bit of hope. And then Bob says, and new man, that was it for me.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting with Kamal. Now, Kamal last year was very Dorian Yates-esque as far as his conditioning and grainy. And I will make a very solid argument that Kamal was the most conditioned athlete at the Olympia last year. In any division, sometimes we see these guys show up and they're just crazy peeled. But I think Kamal was the most conditioned. And obviously his conditioning this year, for anybody who watched or if you were there in person, phenomenal. Again, arguably amongst the best in the show. He had a lot of additional muscle up top, but he looked like he was just, and I want to say just a hair. I mean, because Kamal was still in phenomenal shape.
Yeah.
But just a slight hair off of where his conditioning was last year, which we really felt like opened the door with his added muscle and with a repeat of last year's conditioning. And you know how it is when you're talking like you're really, I mean, just the difference between where he was at last year and this year was so close. And sometimes that's just a matter of timing, an hour later or an hour earlier. But, from where we were looking at it, felt obviously Kamal looked ridiculous. His upper body mass he was able to add over the course of last year and still stay within the 212 confines was impressive. But I think your improvements from last year also really shocked the judges. And we wanted to talk about that a little bit. In these interviews, I don't get too much into training because we've heard, 6 sets of back for, 12 reps. And, we try to talk about other stuff. But you clearly added a lot of muscle. And from myself and the media and the judges, and I think even other people you compete against, every year that we've seen you, we're like, okay, this is it. That's where he's maxed out his frame. And you came in and, I mean, notably larger, it looked like, from last year, hence the Ronnie Coleman comments. What would you attribute your mass gains? Because, again, you got third last year, and you're working on, as far as your division, a little bit of a smaller frame. But, man, you really came in with a new look. What do you attribute that to?
Well, as far as training goes, I work with John Meadows when it comes to my training. So we always prioritize the weaker areas, such as my chest and back. So every program that I have, John really puts a lot of frequency when it comes to those two areas. And he kind of pulls back on the areas that are stronger, like my quads and my biceps. So we're putting a lot more focus to the weaker areas. Another thing I did this year was take an extra rest day, as opposed to previous years where I was training 6 days a week. This year I was only training 5 days a week. So that extra day really helped me recover a lot more and it kept my body really fresh. Another thing I also did this year was I took care of my body more so than I've ever done. And by that, I mean I got deep tissue work done every Sunday, as well as Graston and cupping done every Thursday. So, getting the work done for my body definitely helped me with my training, helped me with bringing in more detail, more conditioning, being able to hit my poses a lot more crisp and a lot cleaner. And again, it's just a matter of consistency. Every single year, I'm training the same way, hard and heavy, based on what John has me doing. And we're just focusing more on those weaker areas. Now, as we grow those weaker areas, my body just grows naturally all around. And we're just working on just overall balance, to be honest with you.
Now, it's interesting that you bring up things like deep tissue massage, Graston, and cupping, because if we talk to the old school bodybuilders, they were doing similar stuff to this for a long time. So a lot of people think this is new, which in a lot of regards it's not. But I feel like social media has made it so much more prevalent and so much more known to the fans and the followers But this is something completely outside of normal bodybuilding business. You know, the eating 6 to 8 times a day, the training for 2 hours, the cardio, the rest. Um, do you feel like that stuff, I mean, can you notice a difference? Like, if, let's say if you missed a week of deep tissue massage, or if you missed a week of Grafton, are those things where you're physically or visually able to notice a large change?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for example, when I get my deep tissue done every Sunday, my body is very relaxed and kind of just ready to train. If I miss a session, I notice that my body is really achy, really tight all over. And when I going through my sessions, things just don't feel right. Things aren't clicking the right way. So again, when he goes in there, he works on all those key areas, especially my chest and back, to really open those up, and especially my quads this year. We're doing a lot of cardio. My legs took a beating, so we really put a lot of focus into my quads, my hamstrings, my glutes, things like that. But again, if I miss a session, man, I'm absolutely going to pay for it. It's going to hurt the entire week until I'm able to get in to see my guy.
Yeah, no, so we just broke up there for a little bit. You brought up your which is an interesting thing that was discussed with yourself and with Rami in your wins, was that the two of you posed as if you could have been up there all day. It didn't affect you. There was no sweating, and to the point where it was very noticeable how collected you are. And Steve Weinberger, the head judge, those of you who aren't familiar, the head judge at the Olympia for the bodybuilding, Steve Weinberger, the last few years has really put the athletes through the ringer as far as the call out. This is for multiple reasons. One, they want to make sure the judges have a fair look at everybody and they get it right.
Yep.
You know, Steve is as old school of a judge and a fan as it gets himself. You know, gym owner for the country, and I think he knows that the fans really like that. They want to see you guys battle it out. But you know, Dennis James released a video today of Rami going through his posing, and they said he was posing first thing in the morning, after meals, before cardio, after cardio. And again, it was a discussion that was had, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about whether you did something different, because you guys were really put through it. There was a couple guys in the 212 that we saw fade, and pose after pose, round after round. You weren't shaking, you weren't sweating, you looked like you kept your composure. Was there something different you did this last year of prep that really made a big difference, you know, for going through those?
Well, I've been doing it 16 years. I competed in 50 shows total, so I had my fair share of, posing. But as far as this year, I literally pose every single day in my off season, during prep, 2 to 3 times a day. So I'd wake up first thing in the morning, before cardio, I'd pose a little bit. Right after cardio, I'd come home, pose in the mirror before I shower. Throughout the day, if I go shower again or do something, I'm in the mirror, I'm posing. Especially after training at night, we were posing room at my gym, so I'd go in there, hit some shots. And also this year, I had the benefit of working with Kai Green this year with my posing. So he helped me a lot mentally with kind of getting my head in the right direction, but also drilling me with posing for the last 6 weeks or so. And if anyone knows, Kai is a stickler for posing and putting on a show. So we got together and we posed, I believe it was almost 2 hours one night. And he just drilled me over and over and over, holding the shots, making sure I'm showing everything, showing all the detail. And every week from there on out, he just continued to check on me. I'd send him photos, he'd critique them, or I see him in person, we'll go over some poses. So that was definitely a benefit for sure this year.
Now with Rami, we saw, and Rami, we saw something familiar. It's familiar with me as a competitor, a lot of guys going through rounds, quarter turns, holding poses for 10 seconds. I've seen some guys do it where they go through the rounds holding poses for 15. I've seen as long as 30 seconds, just holding and squeezing for 30 seconds. Did you have some sort of particular routine, like, hey, I'm going to go through each one of the 8 mandatory poses, hold it for 20 seconds, then go through another round? Did you have something, and this is kind of for the fans and the other bodybuilders that are watching who maybe have questions about what somebody in your condition or in your position does to be able to maintain that level of composure during prejudging? Was there some sort of structured layout to your posing practice?
Yeah, for sure. So pretty much I would go through all my quarter turns, all my mandatory shots, hold them for 15, 20, 30 seconds. But excuse me, but also a little trick that I used to do in the past. I would actually put in a DVD of one of my old shows and I'd pose with my class on the actual DVD. So as the judges call shots, I'm at home going through the whole entire all the mandatory shots along with the DVD itself. So it's like almost like I'm there, but I'm actually at home, so that's actually another way that I used to do a lot of my posing practice at home.
That's brilliant. I've done a lot of interviews. I've done a lot of interviews. I've never really get to hear competitors get a feel for individuals. Part of being part of being I want to circle back a little bit. Like I said, we have some time here. Um, you did your first Olympia in 2015. You were just 16th place. So I don't know if that was 16th as in you were actually 16th, or once you get outside the top 15, they just give everybody. You came back in 2016 and were 13th. And you came back in 2017, and all of a sudden you cracked the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
What year was it when you were at the Olympia or a particular show? Was there a point where it started to sink in, like, okay, like maybe if I keep getting a little bit better, I can win this? Was there a moment, a show placing, or something that happened where all of a sudden it clicked, like, look, man, maybe I can win this today?
Well, there's two actually, and they were both in 2018. The first one was winning the New York Pro, which is one of the third biggest show behind the Olympia and the Arnold's. So winning that really put it into my head that, because we've seen a lot of top champions win that show and go on to do very well, if not win the Olympia. So that was one of the things. But also that same year at the Olympia, I actually cracked the first call out for the first time on the Olympia stage. And in that call out was myself, Flex Lewis, Jose Raymond, David Henry, Ashkenani. So here I am with top guys now battling out in that first call out. Obviously, I ended up with 7th that year. But just being in that mix, standing on that line with those guys, that pretty much told me like it's slowly coming. It's slowly happening where I'm in that mix. And I knew that some of these guys would start, kind of just weeding out. Obviously, Jose retiring and then Flex going to the Open. And then little by little, I was just slowly climbing my way up. And obviously that next year, I went from 7th to 3rd. And obviously Flex went to the Open and Jose retiring, but I was able to beat some of those top guys like Ashkenani, David Henry. And honestly, coming off that 3rd place finish last year really just motivated me more than ever this year to come back even better, because one thing I always tell myself is I can't do any worse than I've ever done. I always have to move forward. And my Olympia place is showing that 16th, 13th, 9th, 7th, 3rd. So I said I'm shooting for first from here on out. And obviously we got back to work after the 2019 Olympia, put together an amazing game plan. We literally had my best offseason ever. Even despite the whole pandemic and everything, I still had a gym to train. I still stayed on my diet. I still got the cardio done. And I just came in this year just headstrong, focused more than ever, bigger, improved, and just ready to take the title.
We saw some new gear from you this year, which was bold, to wear. No plan B.
Oh yeah.
No plan B. I don't think no plan B had anything to do with not going to the Olympia. I mean, everybody knew you would be there, but very clear no plan B meant that the mindset focus was 100% on winning. Now, you knew Derek was going to be there. You knew Kamal was going to be there. You knew George was going to be there. And when we talk to, especially about doing the Olympia, we hear, I know it's the Olympia, so I'm just going to do my best. We had some new people at the Olympia this year who said, look, it's the Olympia. I'm happy to be there. I just want to do my best. And some people, regardless of whether, I think they honestly believe they're going to take first, they train with the mindset that they're going to win because that's what works best for them. And we see that in all kinds of sports. This isn't unique to bodybuilding. You trained every minute of every day like you were going to win this thing, didn't you?
Absolutely. From the start of prep, from the start of off season till during prep, every day my mind was I'm going to win this show no matter what. And I kind of took a step back. Kind of went back to my old way of doing things. I stayed covered up the whole year. didn't post any progress pictures, didn't do any media, no interviews, anything. And because of that, I saw a lot of predictions didn't even have me in the top 5. And I was okay with that because I get it. The guys who are posting pictures and videos every day obviously don't get the most hype and the most predictions. For me, I didn't want any distractions. So staying covered up and doing what I was doing definitely kept me focused on myself only. I never looked at my competitors. I don't know what they looked like, what they were doing, because for me personally, me focusing my energy on them took away from myself, and that couldn't happen. But obviously, I knew what I was capable of. I knew what I was bringing this year, and I knew that if I was improved just a little bit, that I would absolutely give these guys a run this year.
If somebody just, and one thing that I want to do, I know in the last interview we kind of had a lot of questions, so I want to try to get to some more of the fan questions. So for you that are jumping in, please know that we're trying to keep up with all the fan questions. Somebody brought up a good question. Did Rami say anything to you after winning? We know you guys probably chatted a little bit. You were at the VIP Superstar seminar on Sunday. I mean, we had two new champions, which is now 2 years in a row. Having, last year we had Brandon and Kamal win. So 2 years in a row, 2 new Open and 2 new 212 champions. Did you and Rami get a chance to exchange words, and what was that like?
Yeah, so I think I posted this the other day on my story or my page. So Wednesday before the show, 2 days out, at Kissimmee Gym in Orlando, there were 2 guys left training, myself and Rami. Only 2 guys left in the gym training. And Matt, my coach, made like a little bit of not a joke, but he said, you know what? Like I guarantee you guys will be the last 2 guys standing in your division. Him in the Open, you in the 212. And so me and Rami, like we were kind of joking about it, like, oh, that'd be cool, right? And then after the show, we started talking about that, like, hey, we made it happen. And he was like, yeah, we did, and I was super happy for him because, man, there's no one more deserving of the title. He looked absolutely amazing. Props to him, his coaches, for bringing a phenomenal package this year.
Yeah, that's kind of it's almost poetic in a sense that the last training session at the gym where, of course, a lot of people did photo shoots before and after the Olympia, things like that. The last training session, the last 2 people was down to you and Rami. Somebody should have been there taking a whole bunch of pictures and saying this was...
We got photos of it. We took photos of it. I posted the photo at the gym that night, and I posted a photo of him and I with our medals as well. So I put a little story caption about that.
Now, since you brought up John Meadows, John obviously one of the most well-respected bodybuilders and coaches in the industry, period, but very well known for taking some old school training methods, little twists and things like that. It's an interesting debate in bodybuilding because if we look at physiques from the 70s, Arnold, and Lou Ferrigno, and physiques from the 80s like Lee Haney, and then you go into the 90s, there's kind of this, like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? Like, we've had great physique for the last 40 years, but John is, of course, the Meadows Rose, little things that he's taken and built off of time-tested training principles. Talk to us about working with John, with your training, because I'm guessing you learned some new things, changed things up a little. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so I've been working with John now for 6 years, and every program that we've done together, we've done maybe 5 or 6 different programs over the course of the 6 years, have always been different. Obviously, some focusing more high frequency, some more volume, some less volume, and all depending on where I was as far as was I off season or was I preparing for a contest. With his programs, man, I honestly have no idea what to expect at any given time. It's always changing. Some days I'm doing, again, higher reps, heavier weight, or vice versa. The rep schemes are going to be different. Sometimes I'm using bands, sometimes I'm not. It's just a variety of things he's throwing at you. And the good thing about John's program is they're not cookie cutter. So everything that I'm doing, like you said, he's done it and tested it himself, and it works. So again, with me particularly, the program that I was following this year for Olympia was based just on my physique alone and making sure I was focusing on my weaker areas. So like I said, we focused more frequency on my back and chest, and he actually had me cut back on my shoulder training, my bicep training, and even cut back a little bit my leg training, because those are the key areas that didn't need as much work. We still trained them, but we didn't put as much effort as we did my chest and my shoulders. So that's the good thing about working with John. Again, he takes your photo, your videos, studies your physique, and really puts together a program based on improving your physique to make it more balanced.
It's a little bit of an interesting dynamic that I wanted to touch on a little bit because so John is a trainer, but also does diets for many people, and Matt kind of does diets, but also trains people.
Yeah,
And this isn't anything new. So we've seen, especially out on the West Coast, people have seen Charles Glass training people for years, athletes for the Olympia. But when Charles works with people, it's pretty much just, as far as the bigger names, it's pretty much just their actual training. Now, of course, Charles, for you newer school people, Charles, you do phenomenal in competitions, get absolutely peeled. But how does the synergy work with a diet coach who might have insights on your training, but then a training coach like John who might have insights on your diet and kind of, working together as a team? Because I got to imagine, at some point John might think, oh, well, maybe you should up your carbs a little, or Matt, might think, let's hammer your legs a little harder. Talk to us about the synergy between having a coach that trains and having a coach that does your diet.
well, the good thing about both Matt and John, they never step on toes. I told them both up front, like, hey, John, I'm working with Matt for my nutrition. Same thing with Matt, hey, I'm going to continue to work with John for my training. And they respect that. And obviously, as me being an athlete, I have to communicate with both. So when I'm putting together my training program, I'm letting John know exactly where I'm at with my diet. Am I high carb, my low carb, am I prepping, am I off season? And the same thing with Matt. He has to understand where my training's at in order to put together my nutrition plan. Like I said, for me personally, I used to work with John for both my training and my nutrition. But the reason why I decided to stop working with him for my nutrition because we were competing against each other. He was obviously a 212 competitor, and his pro debut was a show that I won in 2015. And I just felt like I just didn't feel right, with him preparing me for a show to beat him. I just didn't feel like it was right. So I decided to, not work with him on the nutrition side, but continue to work with him on the training side. That's the reason why I stopped working with him for my nutrition and sought Matt out.
Well, it obviously worked. You
Yeah,
just climbing up. Now, it's an interesting discussion that's been had a little bit. Obviously, people have looked at your size when you got started as a disadvantage. And now people are starting to look at the room you have to grow in this division as an advantage. And so the basis of that discussion is like, let's take Flex Lewis, for example. After Flex won his first and second 212 Olympias, you saw a phenomenal bodybuilder that was very difficult to beat, maxing out that 212 weight limit. And he really didn't have to make improvements from year to year. Although if you know anything about Flex's work ethic, he was working to make improvements.
of course.
But he was, from a judging criteria, if he brought the same thing each year, he's going to continue to win. And we see other guys in the 212 division that really push that limit of 212 pounds, and you don't necessarily have the ability to add mass. If your conditioning is spot on at 212, then the goal each year kind of becomes just to repeat what you've done the previous year. And you've never been in a situation, and again this year it really shocked people. If I'm being perfectly honest, and not to be like overly dramatic, but there was this big like holy shit when you came out. Excuse my language, but we're all adults here. I mean, but when we see competitors from year to year, you kind of have an idea what to expect. So unless somebody comes out just super gnarly, grainy, with a weight limit, again, it's hard. But I mean, do you feel like now? Because now people are wondering, well, what's Shaun going to, what the hell is he going to look like next year? Do you feel that the changes you can make now and adding a little bit of weight have now turned in almost an advantage in that regard, that the judges can expect a new and improved package year after year, and you have that cap that you really have to worry about?
Well, I'm probably the only guy in the class that has that benefit where I don't have to stress making the weight. I can just walk. I'm kind of just walking into weigh-ins, fully hydrated, eating a meal, hop on the scale, and I'm still 30, 40 pounds under the cap. Yeah, that's, me and Matt obviously have discussed that. Now having a title going forward, I want to make sure I leave a huge gap between myself and my competitors. So we plan year by year to add 3, 4, 5 pounds to my physique each year until we continue to collect titles every single year until I'm capping out the 212 division. I may not even get to 212. Who knows? I may be a good 190, 195 on stage. Who knows?
What did you compete at? What did you compete at this year?
177.
I'm having a look, and I'm guilty because I'm having a hard time. Did you remember what you weighed when you got ninth in 2017?
Yeah, I was 2017.
Yeah.
I was 172. I was actually 172, I think, in that year. Yeah.
I mean, there's a pretty drastic difference. Obviously, you cracked the top 10. I mean, now nobody in my position is gonna say, well, that sounds like too much anymore. And that's another thing that you've done. The people who are like, well, he can't get any bigger. It's like, well, you kind of shut everybody up over the last couple of years. And speaking of champions, Flex Wheeler jumping on in, official Flex Wheeler joining in. Flex, of course, receiving the Courage Award, the first ever. So Flex, it's great seeing you. I got to introduce Wheeler to my oldest brother who got me into bodybuilding. So Flex, part of a very special moment for myself and family at the Olympia. So big shout out to Flex Wheeler on board and for inspiring everybody to be there. So did you get to talk to Flex at all?
No, not this year, but I was just being pulled in 50 different directions.
Sure.
I did get a chance to speak with him, and we were in Japan together. And he gave me some great advice. The one thing I don't forget, one thing I always remember he told me is be the first one in your shot and the last one out of your shot. And that always kind of stuck with me. I want to be the first one to hit that shot and the last one out of that shot. We sat in the lobby of the hotel, and he told me that. And it always stuck in my head. And it's always, when I get up there, I want to be the first one in that shot because the judges are looking at that first person. And then when they're still looking, when everyone's kind of just relaxing, I'm still in my shot. I'm the last person out. So thank you, Flex, for that. I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, and it was interesting because both yourself and Ramy did that. It was the exact advice Dennis James gave to Ramy. And in previous years at the Olympia, and the fans like it, but we see a lot of setup for poses. Phil for the side chest, arm out, foot down, and sitting it. Retractable bicep. Everybody's trying to show off their Christmas tree and their lower back. And it seemed like you and Ramy just hit your shots and held them, which made the what we were talking about earlier that much more impressive because not only were you the most composed hitting your poses, but you were holding them the longest. Mm-hmm. A great piece of advice from one of the best bodybuilders, best posers of all time. But big shout out to Flex Wheeler for joining in. We can't wait to see him there next year. Again, looking dapper as always. So, I'll tell you what, it's a special treat for Olympia fans when you're somebody who's been following the sport for a lot of years and you get to see like a Flex Wheeler there, like, holy shit, there's Flex Wheeler up there.
There is, yeah.
So
I think for me, it was a special moment seeing Dexter compete at his last Olympia. I've known Dexter for many, many years. He's actually, to me, the one guy I've looked up to since I started competing because he was a bantamweight like myself. He had the same problem. People said he was too small. He would never do it. And look at him now. He's a Mr. Olympia, Arnold Classic champion, the most winningest bodybuilder ever. And in my opinion, the greatest of all time, period. And again, now I'm able to call him a friend. I can pick up the phone and call him. So to be there to see his last show, I was excited, but at the same time very emotional to see it. And I told you, it won't be the same without him.
You stole one of my questions, which makes it really way into it. We saw some pictures today on social media of you and Dexter embracing and laughing and the $1 million smile that Dexter has. And asked earlier, about the exchange between you and Ramy. Your first conversation with Dexter that you got to talk to him after your win, what was his words for you?
I mean, he just genuinely was happy for me. He's like, I'm so happy for you. He knew that I've been working for this for a very long time, and he knew that I was in the same position, a bantamweight like him, and people told me I was too small the same way they told him, and he was just genuinely happy for me. And for me personally, it was, again, emotional because I hate the fact that I wasn't going to be able to see him again on stage, but glad I was there to see his last show, period. And like I say, he's far from done. He'll still be involved some way or another, and we'll definitely still stay in contact for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that was another very special moment for the people who were at, certain bodybuilders' first Olympias or last, or the year when You know, there's people who, hey, I was at the Olympia the year Jay came back and did the stomp. You know, I mean, there's certain Olympias that are always going to reign very special for people. But I think you bring up a very good point that I think everybody that was in that audience that um, realized that they were witnessing the end of something very, very special. Um, you know, the fact that they brought his family out on stage, not something that done normally, the ovation from the audience. So, I mean, just being able to sit in the crowd and know that I was there for his last Olympia was really cool. So for you to be able to win and have that conversation with him, and you're right, Dexter, when he turned pro as a lightweight, he started off as a bantamweight.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard I think it's a hard thing for people to relate with. Like a lot of bodybuilders I think can relate to, people told me I wasn't going to make it because when you're 18 or 20 and you tell somebody you're going to be Mr. Olympia, I think that's easy for people to kind of shake their head and laugh at you. But Dexter was in the situation. He turned pro as a small player and really evolved his way up to the top. I mean, and he did it, in a short time frame like you did. By the early 2000s, he was, after a handful of years at the Olympia, he was, cracking that top five, and you were able to do that after just a few Olympias too. So, a lot of mirrors in the stories between both of you, of course.
Yeah.
You want to add more than one Olympia title, but for anybody to crack the number of wins that Dexter has, it's one of those things where Bob made a really good point at the press conference. Like, they say, look, records are made to be broken, things like that, but sometimes it's like we're not going to see this again.
No.
So
No.
that was the feeling with Dexter. So so you're back at the gym already? I mean, is that it? You said you're back to training. I mean, what did you take any time off?
Well, we got home. I think it was Monday. That's
froze up here a little bit. So I'm not sure if people. Oh, there just froze up there a little bit. So did you take any off at all?
I took a couple of days off to enjoy Christmas, but I just felt like I needed to get back into the gym. I felt like a little sluggish. I haven't been going too crazy, not yet. Matt just sent me my new plan for 2021 as far as the off season, so I got that. So we're gonna get that started this coming week.
Now, as far as schedules for this year, of course, we're not really sure. I mean, we have a schedule of the pro shows. We're hoping that, by the time the contest season is really in full swing, we get back to having our shows as scheduled.
Yep.
Are there any plans for you on competing at all between now and the Olympia, or are you gonna do the whole just focus on the Olympia?
Right now, we're just gonna focus on Olympia. I've done many shows in the past, the Puerto Rico pros, New York pros. Now that I'm in a position, with us being a champ, the focus is to obviously continue to be the champ, hold that title, and retain it. And I think for me personally, the best way to do that is to be able to take the entire year to rest my body and improve for 2021.
Which is going to be concerning to a lot of the competitors coming back that you have a full year, because I think only a handful of, I know the rules have changed a few times, but only a handful of the top people are automatically requalified for next year.
Yep.
So a large majority of that field is going to be competing again. I know Kamal's probably going to be back. George at his height, there's a lot of questions as to how long he's going to be able to maintain his standing 212. Of course, it's a discussion that's been had about Derek Lunsford for a handful of years now. But you're not really in that boat. So I guess at this point, it's difficult for you to say who you're going to be battling next year, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. But like I said, both George and Derek easily can be open competitors, just based on their physiques and their height and their weight cap. And who knows? I'm hearing rumors about certain guys coming from Classic possibly into the 212. I know Breon had expressed some interest as well. I'm not sure exactly what his goals or plans are for 2021. Obviously, we have Keon stepping up this year as well from Classic. We saw him do very well at his pro debut, his 212 debut. I don't know who's going to be doing what. I mean, like, again, I don't really focus on it. I can't worry about that. I just, it's going to focus on myself and making sure that, again, I improve and make sure I leave the gap come next year to where I feel like I'm going to retain the title.
Yeah, and not to say that any Olympia champions would ever really rest on their laurels, because there's always somebody hungry coming up. But it seems even with the names that you've just listed off and a potential of unknowns, it seems like you already have the mindset like, look, there's going to be guys on my tail, and you're not going in cruise control anytime soon, are you?
No, not at all. Especially, I mean, I think they made it worse now that the target's on my back. Like I said, I'm back in the gym right now. I may not be going full force yet, but come next week, that's it. I know a lot of guys are taking some time off to kind of rest and relax. Now, like Matt said, we have a goal. We have a set number of titles we want. The target's on my back. And, again, we're trying to retain this title for as long as we want. And I want to make sure I clear that gap for next year.
So one of the things that I talk about, we don't get, too much into personal stuff, but a question that I've liked asking people is about, what your friends from like back home think. I mean, like, people that you grew up, dudes you wrestled with, dudes that you went to high school with, buddies from college, the kid that grew up down the street with you. Now that, and it's one thing to start proving people wrong. Like, okay, I won this show, I got top 10. Now you're an Olympia champion. I mean, what's the response been like? You know what it's like, and everybody's kind of free. What's the response been like? Your friends back home, just normal people at your gym. How's that been?
Honestly, it's been crazy, man. Like, the people in my gym are just, because the gym actually just put a big mural of me in the gym, which is surreal, very awesome. I was there when I came home. I went to the gym that Wednesday, and they were all waiting for me. They unveiled the new mural. I signed it, took tons of photos. I was there for about 3 hours, just taking photos with the members, talking about the show. And my Instagram and Facebook blew up over the past, those 2 days, getting messages from guys from high school and teachers from elementary school, just saying they're super proud of me. And it's an unbelievable feeling. Again, like, these are people that saw me kind of, as a small guy, and they can't believe that I've grown to be what I am today. For me, and also, like, I keep my circle very small when it comes to my close friends. I started this in college, competing, and at the time, I had a group of friends that I used to hang out with all the time. And because at that time I was focusing a lot on training and going to the gym, they kind of started pulling themselves away from me. Never went to any of my shows, just kind of didn't support me. And but again, it didn't bother me too much because I knew I had a goal and I kind of had to stay focused. And unfortunately, again, those friends and I don't keep in contact. But again, I have a few close friends that I do hang out with. My friend John, my best friend John, Michael, my girlfriend, my family. That's all I really need. That small circle of friends.
I was at the seminar on Sunday. It started off kind of fun for those of you who missed it. But we went to a fan Q&A, and we had a great question, which I'm sure you're going to be getting a lot now. And we actually had two young men kind of share the same sentiment. But the first question that we had for any of the athletes was a young man in the first two questions. Those of you who didn't see it, we had a couple of questions about, the scheduling side of the Olympia, ticketing side of the Olympia. Is it going to be back in Orlando? Is it moving back to Vegas? Which isn't the norm for the athlete questions, but they were, it was a VR, so they, Dan did a great job in answering those questions. But the first question I had for any of the athletes was from a kid. I would guess he was probably in his 20s, early 20s. And, when you're a 20-year-old kid at a gym and anywhere, and you tell somebody you want to be a pro bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia, the majority of the comments you're probably going to get aren't those of encouragement. And he asked you very specifically, what you say to younger bodybuilders. And of course, we're on a live here with a different audience. So if you could kind of repeat that sentiment. And the question was, what advice do you have to younger bodybuilders who have big goals, they have big aspirations, but they also have a lot of people telling them are too big? What do you say to young kids like that?
There's always going to be naysayers, people who don't believe or agree with what you're doing. But I think the biggest thing that got me to where I'm at was, one, I stay consistent no matter what, and two, I always believe that I can do it. Having belief in yourself is what's going to get you anywhere in life. Again, I told people back in the day I wanted to be Mr. Olympia. I want to be the best in the world. Some people agreed, some people laughed at me, but again, in the back of my mind, I knew that if I continued to work hard, stay consistent with everything, with my training, my nutrition, had the right mindset, and again, believed in everything, it would all come together. No matter how long it took me to get there, I'd eventually get there. And again, it's been 16 years of hard work, again, consistency, discipline, dedication, passion. And again, I can't reiterate believing that I can be in this position that I'm in right now. Had I not believed in myself, I wouldn't be here right now. That's the first step. You got to believe in yourself. If you could believe you could be Olympia champion, everything else is going to fall into place. Everything else is just going to go with the flow in the right direction. So that's definitely the one piece of advice I give to the younger guys who do have big goals of being a pro bodybuilder, make it to Olympia, or being Olympia champion.
And we get a lot of comments here on all these media feeds, people from across the globe saying they want to be on Olympia stage one day.
Yeah.
I try to comment on as many of them and basically just say, look, it's a comment I've heard a million times, and it's one of those things where, just because of what it takes to be a top guy, a lot of the times that doesn't pan out. But it's one of those things where if you don't try, you're never going to know. So look, there's no guarantees that anybody following this is going to get to the Mr. Olympia or win a Mr. Olympia. But like Shaun said, if you don't believe in yourself and you don't give it a shot, you get 100% rock solid guarantee that you're not going to make it. So when people jump in on these feeds and say they want to be Mr. Olympia one day, we say best of luck, be smart, but get after it. So, but it means a lot having that come from somebody like yourself. I can tell people that, coaches, people at their gym, their parents, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from I worked at GNC when I was in college, and like some 80-year-old came in looking for vitamins and gave me like a pep talk on trying my best in life. And it was like one of those most unexpected moments of wisdom that you get from somebody you never thought you'd get it from. But I think it obviously resonates a lot more when kids and even other bodybuilders. I say kids, because that's what we think about, the younger kids looking up.
Yeah.
But even guys in their in their 20s and their 30s who are even have goals at a local level. Like, look, you don't have to be Mr. Olympia to set goals for yourself, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the best in the world. Your goals have to be very individual, but advice to Shaun and look at what he's doing. I think a lot of people were inspired. Has that sunk in too? Because for me, like I see you as Olympia champion. You got your giant gold medal that's half as big as half as tall as you. You got all this stuff and titles and things like that, but along with your win, you were able to motivate people in a way that a lot of champions can't. What does that mean?
This may sound crazy, but for me, the messages or being an inspiration, being a motivating factor for these guys is more of a win for me than the actual win itself. Because again, I've gotten so many messages even before the Olympia, from shorter guys, younger guys who said, "Hey, thank you, because of you. Now I can do it. I can continue to chase my dream." Because these guys were in the same position that I was once in. I was a small kid that everyone's making fun of, or being told he was too small, too this, too that, and they couldn't make it. So these guys are literally sending me messages. Some of them getting really personal, and it really touches me. Some of the messages I do get. Sometimes people were talking about being able to get healthy again, or life-threatening types of things, and because of me or something I've said or done, has motivated them to kind of get back on the right path. So again, being an inspiration and a motivating factor, for me, that means a lot more. The fact that I'm able to be that for them, to put them on the right path, or to have them chase their goal because they're seeing what I'm doing. Because at one point in time, I was that guy as well. I was that amateur kid getting ready for a local show who was watching Flex Lewis, Jose Raymond, battling out on the Olympia stage years ago. 10, 15 years later, now I'm that guy that everyone's watching and asking for a photo or taking a picture or an autograph. And it's an awesome feeling. That's something, again, I can't put into words. And again, something that I feel that it's bigger than the actual win itself.
Well, one thing we're hoping is that we can get back to some kind of normal travel here, because I know it's from an industry side, and we've been very lucky with the 212 division, especially the 212 division. The champions have been incredible ambassadors. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better ambassador than Flex. I mean, Kamal's the nicest guy, and you're hard pressed to find a picture of Kamal not smiling and laughing. I think as an industry, we're to speak for myself, for the media, from the official side, that we're excited to have such a good ambassador of the 212 division, and we hope that you can get out on the road and share that with people and spread that inspiration beyond social media. So as crazy as 2021 or 2020, we're hoping that things get back to normal for 2021. So people like yourself and Rami and the other champions can travel and inspire people and get to talk to the fans face to face. It's very much we were joking. It was very much like a Rocky story, like Rocky versus Apollo Creed, and then Rocky Clubber, and then Rocky versus Ivan Drago, and here's Shaun just coming out swinging like Rocky every time some way he's knocking somebody else out.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's we're very excited for 2021. I know on the staff side from the Olympia, we were very thankful for the athletes. We were very thankful for all of their fans and all the support. And the one thing that we will say is, I'm telling you guys, there's big plans for 2021. Big plans. We made it through a year like this in the fashion that we did. That says a lot. And before we wrap it up, your thoughts on that? Because I got to go into the area where the Olympia was going to be on Sunday night, and they just had the stage set up, so it was just the stage. And I was like, damn, this thing looks like a football field, but it was just a stage. And then I got to go in a couple days later when they were setting up the monitors, and it was 100 yards long of monitors, and I'm like, literally like a football field of monitors. So
yeah.
I think I'm exaggerating. I'm not. It was 300 feet long. So it was a football field of monitors and stage. That's what was there. And then I walked in Friday. I didn't get to see any tests. So again, I saw the monitors when they were set up in black and stuff like that. And you got to see a glimpse of the how the scope of things. But then when I walked in Friday, maybe an hour and a half before finals and prejudging for Men's Open, it was just, it was mind numbing. What did you think when you walked in and first saw that stage?
Well, first and foremost, I have to give credit and props to Dan, Jake, the entire team. Again, putting this together in a matter of 4 weeks, moving it across the country, and it coming out the way it did was mind blowing. Like you were saying, that stage setup was phenomenal. I mean, from any seat in the crowd, you can see the stage, whether it be the actual stage or through the actual screens. It was crazy. And when I'm backstage, looking at the actual stage, I didn't know where to go because it was so big. So I had to ask the back, I'm like, do I go left or I go right? The guy's like, we'll walk you out, don't worry. I mean, coming out there, just seeing everything, and it was perfect. You can see the entire audience. It was, and then obviously seeing it from the actual seat itself, watching the finals for the Open. It was just such an amazing, everything came together perfect. You couldn't ask for anything better. And the fact that they did this in a short time, you would never have known that. Obviously, we knew that, but everything just came out picture perfect.
Yeah, that was kind of the sentiment that we shared after the show. It's like, you wouldn't have known it was a COVID year if this was just like, hey, we just moved it to Orlando, check out our new stage.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have known it was a COVID year. And for the people who are still on here watching, and for you too, Shaun, and you've heard this, the amount of passion, and I stress passion, that went into planning this Olympia it's immeasurable. And for the fans watching right now, and I'm going to say this course of all of our Olympia interviews because I want people to really understand this. The Olympia, on one hand, is a business. It's a big bodybuilding show. It's a big expo. It's a business. But I can tell you the people behind the scenes did not look at this year's show as a business. They looked at it as tradition. They looked as history. And there wasn't a single person that was behind the scenes planning who isn't incredibly passionate about bodybuilding and the team that they have in place. I mean, I don't make too many personal conversations public, but your producer, Tamer Al-Gindi, I had some discussions with Tamer where, here's a guy who runs 70 shows across the world. He's an incredible businessman, an incredible mind, and his discussions never once rotated around the business end of it as much as they did. They weren't going to have a year where we didn't have an Olympia, and they didn't want to let the athletes down, and they didn't want to let the fans. And so, for as much as people look at the Olympia as they or them or the business or this event, behind all that is a group of incredibly passionate people who love the sport of bodybuilding, they love the fans, and they have nothing but for the athletes, including Shaun. And so to have champions as passionate as Shaun, I think is just, it validates the work that they do. To see somebody put the work, the passion, and the determination into getting on stage, again, it validates the work of the people behind the scenes. So I want that to be very clear, and I know this is an interview about you, but I think it's very important to the Olympia fans because oftentimes in this industry we talk about the IFBB and they, and the NPC and they, and Mr. Olympia and they have names. It's not they as this corporation where everybody's behind the curtain, and I mean they have names, and those names all work to keep hard. Literally sleep nights. I know Angelica Nebbia had a couple nights in a row where she literally didn't sleep. And I know sleepless gets thrown around a lot, like, oh, sleepless night. You probably got 5 hours. No. Like legitimate sleepless nights, trying to pull this off. And so.
But like you said, they're passionate about the sport, and they care about their athletes. And for that, I know I'm thankful, and the rest of my fellow athletes, we're all thankful that they were able to put this on. Again, it's the tradition. And the last thing that I'm sure they wanted to see, and we didn't want to see, was, despite everything going wrong, we didn't want to see this canceled. And I think it's probably one of the best Olympias we've seen in a long time, for sure.
It was a phenomenal event. We thank you for being the champion that you are, that we know you're going to be. We're going to wrap this up. I know we hit some goofy questions last time, so I'll spare you this time.
All right.
But thank you so much for joining in. Thank you to Trifecta, our sponsor for all of our Instagram lives. Once again, make sure to check them out at trifectanutrition.com. And Shaun, we're going to be catching you, of course, throughout the course of the year here at the Olympia page. But it's never too early to say good luck.
Thank you.
And we'll see if we get an answer at the 2021 Olympia. I know that's what you're shooting for, but thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be in touch soon, all right?
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, David.
All right, Shaun, and thank you very much to all the fans for joining in tonight. We're going to be back with more of our Olympia champions, as well as Olympia rookies, some Hall of Famers with their take on the Olympia. So as far as the Olympia lives go, guys, we got a lot of cool things in store for you over the next week. So make sure to tune in, and we'll see you then. Shaun, have a good night, okay?
See you later.